Hello, thank you for joining me. This is What I've Been Thinking. I'm your host, Marcus Cage. In this video, I want to address Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden made the comment that Trump is the first racist president that we had. He said that, yes, other ones had tried to be president, but Trump's the first one. So what I decided to do was I decided to go down a little list of memory lane of the presidents. I know that it's a lot of presidents, and I tried to keep this as short as I can, so I didn't go into every single detail of the presidents. I ended up putting them into categories of basically racist / slave owner, indifferent, and decent on race, because I'm pretty sure we dig further and maybe it's not as good for some of these people. Some of these people that I'm gonna put in certain categories, it may surprise you. So buckle up and hopefully you guys enjoy this. Starting off with our first president, George Washington. George Washington was definitely a racist and a slave owner, and he also double-crossed the Native Americans, which he had helped years before. He turned around and messed them over later. On to our second president, John Adams. John Adams, you know how most people say, oh, like the first 9-10 of them owned slaves. Actually, that's not true. John Adams did not own slaves. Though technically he's been around slaves, and yes, he did benefit from his wife's family and their relationship with slave masters. So he gets a mark on the decent side because he felt that it was horrible to himself and he would never take part of it, but he did not push to try to get rid of it. So, is he a racist? No. So there you go. You have one not racist, one racist. Third president, Thomas Jefferson. Do we really need to even go into him? We'll just skip past Thomas Jefferson. Definitely a racist. On to our next president, the fourth president, James Madison. James Madison owned slaves, and not only did he own slaves, he's the one that came up with the 3/5 compromise, which said black people are 3/5 of a human. On to our next president, James Monroe was a slave master also, and the man who led to the Monroe Doctrine. Monroe Doctrine, which led to so much racism outside of the United States, going into South American and Latin countries. Next president, our number 6, John Quincy Adams. He was anti-slavery. He did not own slaves either, but he did benefit from his relations to people who did own slaves. Andrew Jackson, massive slave owner, very brutal, killed a lot of redcoats actually with his own bare hands, and not to mention the Trail of Tears. Definitely, probably one of the most racist presidents we've ever had. On to the 8th president, Martin Van Buren. Martin Van Buren was actually an abolitionist. So that's a good thing. Only problem is he didn't own slaves also. And He was a little racist, even though he was considered an abolitionist. On to our ninth president, William Henry Harrison. I wasn't going to even really count him because he was only president for 31 days, but yes, he did own slaves. Number 10, president number 10, John Tyler. He was big time about states' rights, protecting slavery. So can't really say he wasn't racist either. Let's see. Number 11, James K. Polk stole half of Mexico's land for gold and silver, which they eventually took out of, which, led to the California gold rush and silver rush, Nevada, and all those places like that. That was Polk who stole that land so he could poach the gold. And yes, he was a slaveholder also. Next president, our 12th president, Zachary Taylor, had a massive plantation. And he was instrumental in actually making Texas a part of the nation, stealing it from Mexico, basically. Our 13th president, Millard Fillmore. He was what you would have called a moderate of his day. He was anti-slavery, but he wasn't going to lift a finger to stop it because he just felt like, there's not much that we can do about it. He did not want to extend slavery, but he would not make any laws against people owning slaves. Or, I'm sorry, I'm not a little mixed. He wouldn't allow you to, ship in more slaves, but it was not illegal to own slaves. And a couple other things, fugitive, acts and stuff like that. Slave fugitive acts. And he did some stuff that wasn't good. Let's see, where are we at? Number 14, Franklin Pierce. Franklin Pierce did not own slaves, but he was super racist and a colonizer. He was one of the big Monroe Doctrine type that start pushing around through all the Latin American countries. First off, before they start, really running through Asia, which at that time in those early days, the British still had a lot more slaves, so they were brutalizing Asia. Let's see. On to number 15, James Buchanan. All you have to do, in my opinion, is look up Dred Scott. That screams racist in my opinion. And even though some people say he didn't own slaves, there are some records that say it's possible that he might have owned slaves. So we don't know on him, but we do know that he was definitely racist. Number 16, Abraham Lincoln. This one is not fun to talk about because a lot of people might not have done much research into Abraham Lincoln. He falls into the indifferent category. Lincoln did not do the Emancipation Proclamation and, go into the Civil War because he wanted to stop slavery. That was not his sole reasoning. He saw multiple problems brewing between, yes, the people who wanted slavery and the people who didn't. And he saw possible succession and separation of the country. And he was trying to figure out a way he could try to keep it all together. Instead, it led to war. And since the North was able to win, they were able to reconcile, and things worked out until what happened. After President Lincoln, our 17th president, Andrew Johnson. Andrew Johnson tried to reverse almost everything that Abraham Lincoln did that was positive. Super racist. president and was the first president impeached, which he got up, I believe, 1 or 2 votes. Let's see, 18, Ulysses S Grant. He actually prosecuted KKK members. He appointed Jewish citizens to elected office. Not elected office. You can't appoint elected office. But he appointed Jewish citizens and Black citizens to offices in government and helped a lot of minorities. Problem is, he does have racism in it. I mean, he does have slavery in his past too. The same with Andrew Johnson, which I guess I skipped over, but Andrew Johnson owned slaves also. He just didn't own them while he was president. So that's going through pretty much the first 18 presidents, and good chunk of them owned slaves. Okay, let's skip up to number 19. Rutherford B. Hayes. He was a staunch abolitionist, one of the ones which I consider a pretty decent president. He doesn't have a lot of things that stick out, going over a quick skim, but of course, like you say, you dig deep enough, you might find things that you won't like in different people. Number 20, James A. Garfield. I put him as indifferent because he was only in office for 6 months before being assassinated, before being the second person to be assassinated. 21, Chester A. Arthur was very racist against Asians, but was not racist towards Black people, but he was very racist towards Asian people. So yes, he was still racist. Where am I at? Grover Cleveland. Grover Cleveland was very, very racist. And he despised Lincoln, and he despised what he felt Lincoln did to the country. To keep it going, on to our next one, Ben Harrison, which is actually the grandson of former president, which we mentioned before. Ben Harrison was a Union soldier, kind of very thin resume, not a lot about him, but I just kind of leave him as an indifferent. Then right after him, we have William McKinley. William McKinley was definitely racist. Had no sympathies for any non-white people in general. On to a good one. Teddy Roosevelt. Though Teddy has gotten some slack from some of the statues that have been up, which are cast in a very negative light to minorities, overall, his record was very good, especially in that time period for his interactions with most Native Americans and most in the Black community, Black community. Also, and the Jewish community too. He was pretty much good with race across the board, and he was also pretty good with cracking down on the wealthy 1%. So, hats off to Teddy. William Howard Taft, who followed behind him, was kind of in the same mold of Teddy. Wasn't quite as effective. He was considered a very nice guy. I think as far as on race issues, he probably continued Teddy's legacy and probably pushed it a little further. Maybe came up a little bit short on the trust busting and some of the other things. Next, Woodrow Wilson, number 28. Woodrow Wilson was super racist. He actually showed what's it called? Forgetting the name, I believe it's called The Birth of a Nation. He showed that film in the White House, which is a film which glorifies the KKK as in being honorable, It shows a lot of blackface and making it as if black men are trying to rape white women and that there's some savages. It's really horrible and disgusting. Let's see, what are we at? 29, Warren G. Harding. Funny rumor, some people joked around, they used to say that he was the first black president. It's rumored that his not great grandfather, but his grandfather was actually a black man. So a lot of people believe that, yes, he had black DNA, and so he was technically the first black president. Although jokingly, of course. He was the grandson of an abolitionist, and makes sense if you had a black grandparent that they might be against slavery. Only problem with Warren G. Harding, he was good on race, but he was crooked as can be. Teapot Dome scandal, where it was a hot mess with that. So we will just go on to the next thing from there. Calvin Coolidge. Calvin Coolidge hated the KKK. He actually was one of the first presidents to push for an anti-lynching bill in the year my grandfather was born, 1924, which he's passed away. But 1924 was when Calvin Coolidge tried to put in law an anti-lynching bill. But let's be honest. Of course, he did some racist stuff, somewhere else. I know that he was big, a big time proponent of the Monroe Doctrine and going into other countries and messing with them also. Try to keep this moving. Number 31, Herbert Hoover. Hoover, the man, still synonymous today with shanty towns named Hooverville, which I see those popping back up, which I guess we'll call them Trumpvilles now. Let's see. He did Mexican repatriation. And I believe he was taking black people out of office and things like that, and really ticked off the NAACP. 32, which this one it's not fun for me to talk about. It's when it comes to race on this president. FDR, many lefties love him. And look up to him. I like a lot of the policies he did. The one thing which a lot of people don't realize is those policies were excluded from the black community. They were not allowed to reap the benefits from the New Deal, from Social Security at first, from a lot of those programs. So right there, that's one strike against FDR, one massive one in my eyes. The next strike against FDR is he actually did Japanese internment camps also. So it shows that he was naturally a racist. Even though he made policies which were very helpful for a lot of people. On to our 33rd president, Harry S. Truman. Truman actually pushed for integration in the military. The only problem is he didn't push for very much defense of those same troops when they got back home. So, I don't know exactly how I feel about Truman completely. Eisenhower. Our next president, the 34th president, Dwight D. Eisenhower, continued integration. And then he carried on with the Monroe Doctrine also, going into all these other countries and doing nation building, just for him in his farewell address to say, watch out for the military industrial complex, after he had just been out there helping prop them all the way up. But I digress. Our 35th president, JFK. JFK was pretty good on race. So we'll just skip on past that. So we'll keep this moving. Our 36th president, Lyndon B. Johnson. After the assassination of Kennedy, he stepped right in and he carried the mantle and he helped take the rest of the things across the finish line. So Lyndon B. Johnson was definitely pretty good on race. Now, on to our 37th president, Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon, the Southern Strategy, drug war, Vietnam, all those things. No. Yes, definitely a very racist president. So we can just skip past. We can skip past Nixon. We'll go on to our 38th president, Gerald Ford. Gerald Ford, pretty decent president as far when it came to race. So that's that's something to be said. Not bad. Our 39th president, Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter was very good on race for the most part. I'm pretty sure, like I said before, you can dig in and always find something on everybody if you look hard enough. Our 40th president, Ronald Reagan. In my opinion, probably one of the most racist presidents in my lifetime. Demonizing the black community as far as food stamps and all those things. Starting off his campaign in Philadelphia, Mississippi, the place where the black, the Jewish and black civil rights students who were trying to get people registered to vote were murdered. He decided that would be a good place to kick off his campaign. If I'm not mistaken, I think Nixon might have even went there also. So, obviously they're looking for that racist angle. Let's see, next president, the 41st president, George Herbert Walker Bush. On race, I put him in the indifferent category, even though he was Reagan's vice president and Reagan was pretty racist. You could make an argument that when he was head of the CIA director and he pushed for these drug wars and all this stuff, that's pretty racist also. So I'll let you guys decide how you feel about the senior Bush. Bill Clinton. In my eyes, the crime bill, the counter scheduling that he was doing, pushing back against the left, the Sister Soldier moment, how he treated Jesse Jackson, how he treated Obama, and the crime bill, NAFTA, a lot of these things, how he was trying to cut a lot of the social safety net for the lower income. I mean, Clinton did a lot of things which I felt were hurting one community more than some other communities. And so, in my opinion, I felt Clinton's definitely racist. I mean, his wife was a Goldwater girl, and the Goldwaters were against the civil rights movement. So that's where Hillary started from. Let's go on to number 43, George W. Bush. George W. Bush, I do not really see a racist bone in his body. But I don't think he cares about minorities at all either. Just because I say you're not racist doesn't mean you actually care about people either. So that's where I feel Bush is thinking. People are transactional the same way, like with Donald Trump. Things are transactional. I need you for this, and you're going to do that for the time being. Next, Obama. Of course, he wasn't racist, but he's pretty indifferent about trying to stop any of the problems of racism that are going on around him. 45th president, Donald Trump, of course he's racist. Of course he's racist. And I decided for good measure, let's go on ahead and hit up number 46. Whether that is Donald Trump, whether that is Joe Biden, our 46th president, drumroll please, will be racist also. Thank you. Have a good one.